Hi there, Stephanie of Stephanie Stitches here. Welcome to my channel where together we sew. If you're brand new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell for notifications so you'll know when I post up videos like this one or when I go live. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I love seeing all of you here and your comments down below. Well, today is my birthday, so I might be a little slap happy because I've had some chocolate. My chocolate from So Yeah came. And this is my third video of the day. I started off with my Vlogmas video, and then I had my live Q&A, and now we are here for my premiere. So when I asked you guys to give me some questions from my Q&A, I also asked you, I think it was on day 3 of Vlogmas, I believe. It's a while ago. It feels like a while ago. If there's anything that I could do for you or anything I could show you. And so I'm not going to be able to include everything that you guys asked me for today, but hopefully over the next month or so, I'm going to do some other tutorials, and those things will help those of you who asked me. But there's a couple things that I can show you today, and I'm really excited to. The #1 requested thing was how to join your binding. Not how to put the binding on, but how to join it together. That was interesting to me that was the #1 question. So I'm going to show you how to do that today, along with a couple other things. So stay tuned and let's get going. So here I've got a quilt, the binding attached to one side. I haven't flipped it yet and done the other side. This is the back. So this is the way I join binding. Now you can join binding any way you want to, of course. Your way might work better than my way. This is just the way that I prefer to do binding. I've tried all the binding tools. I've tried the binding rulers. There's none of them that I found that I like better than this method. So when I first started quilting, what I would do is I was taught this at a class actually, and this is not the way I do binding now. But for a beginner, if you don't want to do the diagonal bind, joining the binding, the first thing I was taught is you could just fold the pieces over like this, leave just a tiny bit of space in between, iron these down, and then join them together on your sewing machine, and then stitch it down, and you'll have one continuous piece. The only problem with doing a straight seam, and it's not a problem if you're just doing a utility quilt or anything like that, but you do get a little bit of bulkiness right there. So it can be somewhat obvious on your quilt. You can feel it. It sticks out a little bit more than the diagonal seam binding. So I realized very quickly that I needed to learn another way to bind. So now what I do, and make sure you leave a good tail at each end so you have space to do this. So now what I do is I do still fold over. I finger press, and then I snip this off right here just to make sure I've got a nice straight line on this end of my binding. I just use snips for this, or scissors for this. I don't rotary cut. I don't want to cut into my quilt, and that didn't snip cleanly. So I'm going to clean that up. Okay. I don't want to cut into my quilt. So now I've got this piece here. So what I do is I take my other piece of binding, and this is to do a diagonal seam. Do you guys hate strings as much as I do? I hate them. Okay. So what I do is you take the width of your fabric. So my binding, I like 2 1/4 inch binding better than 2 1/2. So my binding this time is 2 1/4 inches. So if you have 2 1/2, this step should be 2 1/2. If you have 2 1/4, this step should be 2 1/4. There's some people that do a 2-inch binding, so this step should be 2 inches. So what I do is I overlap my pieces just like that, and I measure from the piece that was coming from this side that I already cut, line it up with this piece right here, and then I measure in the same width that my binding piece is. So that'll be 2 1/4 inches. And I draw a line with my friction pen. You can draw a line with whatever kind of marking tool you want. I know some people don't like friction pens, but this part is not going to show. Not only can you iron it off, but it's going to not be part of this quilt. So it won't matter. All right, so now I've got a line drawn, and I'm going to double check. Yep, 2 1/4 inches in from the overlap on the longer piece, the top piece. Okay, so to put that aside, I don't need that anymore right now. I'm going to cut this off on that line because we don't need all this extra. So you don't need any special tools except a regular quilting ruler and a marking pen. See, I just pretty much cut that pen off. There's just a little bit on here now, which will disappear. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open both these pieces up. If my fingers will work. And to join this binding, you're going to lay this piece on top of here. And to make sure that you joined it correctly, pull both of them tight like it would be after you sewed it. So yeah, I didn't flip it enough. So that's opened up. I need to flip it over. And then after I join it, yes, it should work out. Okay, so again, lay this on top, measure your piece, open both pieces up, and I'm going to flip this over and join it on top. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is you can pin if you like. I don't pin, but I've been doing this a long time. But you can pin these in place, but make sure that you line this edge up with this edge. It's not like when you join regular binding where you might overlap it a little bit, so corner to corner, and then you cut all this off. Since we cut it 2 sides, make sure that those are definitely touching each other, those edges. And actually, if I can find my pins really quick, I will pin it so you guys can see that. And that's also a good way to check and make sure you put your binding on the correct way, because if you flip it the wrong way, you're going to have to rip it and redo it. So no special tools needed. You just need to measure in the width of your binding, overlapping the piece that was on there first. Okay. And then you're going to sew from the corner up here down to this bottom corner here where those meet. And if we've done it correctly, our binding should come out perfect. Let me sew this. So again, starting in this upper corner and going down to the lower left corner, or lower right corner, I'm sorry. Starting in the upper left corner, going down to the lower right corner. Now the reason why you want to leave long enough tails is it does get awkward pulling all this underneath your machine. So okay, so now before I cut anything, let's quilt all back up here. Sorry about bumping the camera. Before I cut anything, because at this point my piece would look like this. Before I cut all this excess away, because we're going to want to cut it away, I always pull it to check and make sure that I sewed it together correctly. And there has been times where I sewed the wrong side on, like especially if it's a solid binding or a batik, and I pulled it and this was like twisted. So definitely pull it, make sure that it comes out correctly, and then you can open this back up and trim this 1/4 inch away. Grab my, oh, there. I'm just gonna scissor cut it. You guys can rotary cut it if you want, or you can scissor cut it. Okay. And so I'm going to finger press this open so it creates less bulk. Close that up. Sort of finger press that part too. And now we can sew the rest of our binding on. Oops. Not if your machine comes unthreaded. So I do recommend when you start and stop your binding before you sew your tails together that you backstitch, because sometimes when you're manipulating your tails to put the two pieces together to join your binding, the stitches can pull out if you haven't backstitched. So I always backstitch. Okay, now my machine's threaded. And this should lay, if I did it correctly, it should lay just perfectly. Now when you do binding, I do try to match the thread to the color of the binding. Obviously I did not match this thread. I used white, so hopefully you guys could see it. But after I flip this over and attach it to the other side, I am going to get out, I have a thread that's this color. So I am going to get this out and stitch with this color. But what I do recommend, and a lot of people don't do this when they do their binding, a lot of people do regular size stitches. I severely shorten my stitch length. I don't know if you guys can see those stitches, how small they are. I do that because I don't want my binding to come off. I've seen a lot of quilts where the binding gets really loose and starts to come off because they have a few big stitches, they do big stitches, and then maybe like the quilt gets tugged or pulled, or like a stitch or two gets loose. You guys know as soon as a stitch or two gets loose, eventually they're all going to come out. So I do really teeny tiny stitches on the side that's not going to show. Now, once I flip this over and I stitch on this side, I'm going to lengthen my stitches. This is about a 1.4. Once I flip it over and do this side, I'm going to do about a 2.5. I'm going to make it look like quilting stitches, right? Like the stitches that are on the quilting, which are on this side. You can see the quilting. But for the bottom side, I always do really teeny tiny small stitches, and I've never had a binding come off. So I hope that that made sense and that you found that useful. Okay, the other thing that you guys asked me is how to use the binding ease. Now I have done that in another video, but I'm going to show you again because it has to do with binding. So I'm going to put this aside and finish this another time. Just got to flip it over now to the front. Okay. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your ironing board and your iron, and I like to use my mini iron for this. You can use a full-size iron with the binding ease, but my full-size iron is an Oliso Pro, and if you guys know what an Oliso Pro is, an Oliso Pro lifts by itself, so it doesn't do what I need it to do for this. And this mini iron gets really, really hot. So I have no problem with using my mini iron for this. Actually prefer it. So it gets plenty hot to do it. Now, if you don't have a mini iron or you only have a big iron, that's fine. It'll work too. So this is the binding ease from Quilted Hearts. Flip it around so you can see. It comes in this blue color. And it comes in like, I don't even know what to call it. I think it's like a coral pink or salmon pink, something like that color. I'm not sure if they call it coral or what they do, but it comes in two colors. Of course, I picked the blue. This is not a product I sell. The company that makes these do not sell them to Amazon or any company that sells on Amazon. So if you find them in one of those places, it's a fraud product. They do sell to quilt shops only. They don't sell to like Walmart or Joann Fabrics or anything like that. No big box stores. Fat Quarter Shop, I believe, has these, or you can go directly to their website, which I'll link down below for you guys. The one thing I want you to know is I don't sell this. I'm not making any money off of this. I'm not an affiliate for them or anything. I just really love this product, and I like to bring you guys things and show you things that I love that I think are worth the money. It is a little bit pricey here in America. It's, I think, 30 or 32. Steven in Canada had gotten one, and I don't remember how much he paid, but I want to say with shipping and everything, it came to like 80 Canadian. So it's not the cheapest thing, but I will tell you that if you're a quilter like me that quilts a lot, it's a huge time saver, and I love it. So the first thing I do is I take my binding strip, and this is binding for another quilt, and I just iron the first little bit, okay? Stick it through this little slot right here, and then the slot on the other side, okay? Then, this is a silicone mat, but don't put this on your cutting mat. You'll ruin your cutting mat. That's why I said get an ironing pad or board or whatever. I haven't tried it on a wool mat. I know Steven has one. I don't do wool mats. So, I don't know if he's done it on a wool mat. That's something I'll have to ask him, or if you guys are interested, maybe you can ask him. But this is, you know, an ironing board. So, all you have to do is lay your iron and leave it. The mat can take it, the silicone mat. And you just pull from this end, the end opposite the iron, or next to the iron, and you just keep pulling your strip, and you sort of with your other hand guide your strip through this little, I don't know what you call these, but through this little guide here. You just guide it and sort of fold it in half as you go, but you don't really have to fold it. When I found this, it was a game changer, because I used to stand for hours at ironing boards making binding, like a regular ironing board, and trying to fold and iron at the same time and burning my fingers. Not only does this go like ridiculously faster, but I don't burn my fingers anymore, ever. So I love this. Now, I didn't join these strips together yet. You can join them ahead of time before you do this. I haven't done that yet, but as you can see, I've got a perfectly ironed binding strip, because here's the unironed one. So I'll just do another one really quick. I'll just join them afterwards, and that's fine too. Sometimes in a way I think it's a little bit easier to join them afterwards. So, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing. Pop it through the guide there. Pop it through the guide on the other side. Now this mat does get hot, so be careful. Don't grab it right after you've ironed. Let it cool off, but it doesn't take long to cool off. Like, it'll be cool after I set it aside here in a minute, after probably 2 or 3 minutes. Just pull it through. Nice and easy, see? And like I said, I don't sell these. I'm not making any profit off of this. I will only show you guys products that I think are completely worth the money, because I know, you know, everybody's on a budget. So you don't want to spend money on something and get junk that doesn't work. But I'm telling you, you guys, this saves so much time and so much money. And I love it. Maybe I should be an affiliate for them. Okay. And that's it. And I have 2 of my 6 binding strips now already ironed. So it's as fast as that. So that's the binding ease. All right, I'm going to take a break, and I'll come back with you guys and show you a couple other things that were asked of me. Okay, so one of the things that a viewer asked is how to make flying geese and how to get them to come out perfect, because they were having trouble getting their flying geese to come out perfect. The first thing I have to say is that if you're not using Best Press or starch or Acorn fabric solution, why not? You should be. The Best Press or starch or whatever you use besides just steam and water will make your fabrics, it gives it more It makes them stiff, and when you cut it, they cut more precisely, and the more precisely you cut, the more precise your blocks are going to come out. So that's tip number one. Number two, with flying geese, first thing you're going to want to do is draw a line on the back of your flying geese, the squares that go on the rectangle of the flying geese. Draw a line corner to corner so you know where to stitch. Don't just eyeball these, because if you eyeball them, they're going to come out crooked, and you're going to want to slow down in your stitching, which I know is not an easy ask for some of you, including myself, because I tend to sew very quickly. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do. Second thing you're going to want to do, and this seems very odd, I know, is take some Elmer's glue. Or Acorn makes a glue too that works, but Elmer's glue is something that most people have around their home. Just put a little touch of it right there. Line up your square exactly where you want it, on the side that's going to be permanently on this flying geese. Then stick down your piece, give it a quick press, and of course if you're using a friction pen, you're going to have to draw your line again, unless you've got the seam guide tape, which I do on my machine. And then you're going to sew corner to corner, and this shouldn't move because it's glued down, but the glue is going to, that's the part we're going to cut off, so it's going to go away, so you don't have to worry about that glue. You can also use that glue trick for binding, for all sorts of things. So I just cut that little piece off. Okay, sorry about that, technical difficulties for a minute, but I trimmed that piece off. So now the piece that I glued is gone. So you don't have to worry about like glue being in your quilt. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to demo this too, because a lot of you asked me again, how does the Acorn Easy Press pen work? Because you see me use it all the time. I use it all the time because I love it. This is another product that I would fully recommend. I do sell this. I'm not affiliated with the company though, but I don't sell things that I don't love, and I love this. So you take the end off, you fill it with the solution, and there are, what is that called? Like a screw. I can't think of it right now. My brain's not working. Anyway, there's grooves in here, and this screws down into it, the cap. So make sure you don't fill it up past the bottom. Actually, don't even get there. I would stay like a 1/4 inch down from the bottom, because, or where the end of the screw goes to, because if you do, liquid will come up out the back, and ask me how I know. So you fill that up, screw that back on, and to get your pen started, now mine's probably already wet, yeah, because I use it all the time. If you're using it for the first time, your pen is not going to be wet on the tip, so it's going to take you pressing down, and I'll show you on my mat because it's not going to hurt my mat. You're going to have to press down like 3 or 4 times, but see, I already have liquid coming out of mine. You can sort of see that in the camera, before liquid's going to come out. Once it gets soaked, it only takes 1 press to get liquid to come out. And then you just move it across your seam just like this. You can see the line I'm making on my mat. It's not going to hurt my mat, like I said. I'll just wipe that off. It's not a big deal. Does no harm to mats. So I'm going to do that on my fabric. I'm going to apply it to the seam. Now you can apply this. Somebody asked me if you could apply it to, if you have to apply it to the back like this, or if you can flip this open first and apply it to the front. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're more comfortable with, it does work either way. I'll tell you that. See how wet that got? And that's just from pressing it down 1 time. So then what I usually do, and this is just me, it's not something you have to do for Acorn. I like to finger press my flying geese to make sure that that triangle is sitting exactly where it's supposed to be on that rectangle before I iron it down. And then I just give it a press. All right, so I'm going to do the other side too and show you one more time, because I was interrupted by technology issues. So I've already drawn the line on this one. So I'm going to make sure that this is sitting exactly where I want it to. And then I'm just going to put a couple dabs. Now, I don't do this, you know, most of the time when I make flying geese, like for myself, but I'm just giving you guys this tip, especially if you're a beginner. It helps your pieces not to move. I'm going to stick this down. Okay, now that's glued on there. It's not going to move. And then take this over to your sewing machine and sew from corner to corner. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my scissors. You can rotary cut if you want with a ruler and go 1/4 inch away. Cut away 1/4 inch. I'm pretty good at eyeballing it. I've been doing it a long time. Get that extra thread off of there. Okay, so this is the part that I cut off is the part that I glued. So no glue in the quilt. Although a lot of people use glue, Elmer's glue, to do their binding, which I think is, ow, sorry, I hit the whole cabinet with my knee. I think is actually a really great way to get your binding exactly where you want it, and then it washes out. So even if you had it in your quilt, it'll wash out. See the pen, I didn't even have to push down, it's still wet. Once you get that tip wet, it stays wet for a while. Okay, so that's how you apply the Acorn Easy Press. And I'm going to finger press this, and it's looking like a flying geese should look, so that's good news. Okay, so there is my flying geese. Now somebody asked me about squaring up flying geese. I never square up my flying geese. I just make them as precise as possible. As you can see, it came out pretty darn straight and pretty well. And I just go with it. You know, I don't have blocks that turn out wonky too often. So if you do some of these extra steps, I know it takes longer to like glue, use the Easy Press, draw lines, things like that. But if you take some of those extra steps on this end, when you put your blocks together, like this would go in a star block, your blocks are going to come out that much better. So those are just some tips. You don't have to listen to me. There's lots of people out there that have lots of tips. This is just the way I do it. So I hoped this helps somebody out there. Okay, so those were some of the demos that you all asked for. Many people asked me about the binding ease, and many people asked me about the pressing pen. So I hope that's what you're looking for. I hope joining the binding made sense. I have other binding tutorials of showing you how to do the entire binding besides the joining. So if you are looking for a binding tutorial, there's those. I know there's lots of other channels that have binding tutorials as well. So yeah, it just takes a really long time to do a full binding because watching you go all the way around, you know. So if you're interested in that, go check out other videos on my channel, or just look up binding tutorial. Corey Yoder's got a really good one on her channel. So that's it for those. To the winners of the giveaways during this premiere, make sure you email me, stephanies.stitches@yahoo.com. My email is in the description box below this video. The link to the Binding Ease and also to my shop, if you're interested in anything, are also in the description box below. I'm trying to think. Oh, some exciting news. I know we are at day 15, so we've got about 10 more days to go, 9 more days to go of Vlogmas. On Christmas Eve, I believe that is a Saturday, correct? Or is that Christmas Day? I don't know. One of them is on a Saturday, so the holiday falls on Saturdays with Steph. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing any sewing that day. We'll see what kind of what's going on with my family. If it's Christmas Eve, I may, just because, hang on, I'm looking at the calendar really quick. I may, just because we don't do a whole lot on Christmas Eve at 5, we usually do things later. So I might pop on just for an hour just to say hello to you guys, maybe, you know, work on a UFO or just chat for a little bit. And then the following Saturday, Saturdays with Steph, is New Year's Eve, and I will be at our retreat in Georgia. Well, we've decided we are going to do a live from that retreat. You're welcome to come on and join. I will have at that night, I will have a Zoom link in the description box of the video if you want to come on a Zoom. But if you decide to do that, you have to be willing to have your camera on and your mic on so we can hear you and talk to you. If not, you can just watch, but we won't start that one. I know Saturdays with Steph usually starts live at 5 on Saturdays. We won't start that one until later, probably 10 or 10:30. I'm not sure on the exact time yet, because we're not going to go from 5 until after midnight. That's a long time. That's just, it's long for you guys, it's long for me, so that's kind of crazy, and we just want to ring in the new year with you guys. So at the retreat, we're just going to be working on UFOs, so bring your UFO to work on, bring your glass of wine or your sparkling cider, whatever it is that you like on New Year's Eve, and join us. And then beginning in January, the first weekend, which would be, I'm not good at math right now, first, second, third, fourth, sixth, like the 6th of January, I believe, the first Saturdays with Steph. I'm going to do a weekly, a block of the week, a starter block of the week. A lot of you have asked, because I love star blocks so much, if I would do a star sampler block or quilt. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 1 star block a week for probably 12 weeks. So we can have enough, because 12 blocks about will make a quilt. So there'll be probably 12-inch blocks. And we're just going to do that on Saturdays with Steph once a week, except for, the only exception is going to be the weeks that we sew the Cotton Cuts Village Green, that we do that sew along. So that begins in February. So the weeks that there's a Cotton Cuts, we're not going to have a block that week. We'll skip that week and we'll go to the next week, because a lot of you that watch me are sewing that along. So I'm really, really excited about that. That begins in February. To the people who came on this month for the Village Green Sew Along Sewers, I'm going to get you out a Zoom link here really soon, and I'll bring you on the 2nd week in February. You can either do my block, because I'm going to do the block of the week, or you can bring your own project and work on a UFO, but we're going to do that. So lots of fun stuff coming up. And then the Fort Worth Fabric Studio Sew Along begins this Monday. Wow, this month is going fast. December 19th. That fabric is absolutely gorgeous. So if you're sewing along, I can't wait to sew along with you. And if you're not, go ahead and come watch the videos anyway. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming by. I know 3 videos in one day is quite a lot. I really, really appreciate you. I'm so happy to have you here. And thank you all from the bottom of my heart so much for the birthday wishes. I got a few gifts from people, so thank you for that. That was so, so sweet of you to think of me, especially this time of year. I know with Christmas and everything, you know, budgets can be tight, and it was very, very nice to get not only some store-bought gifts, but some homemade gifts too. That it meant the world to me. I just love seeing all of you here and having this fun little community. I did do a Q&A earlier today. My daughter Sarah came on with me, so if you missed that, because I know a lot of you were probably at work, that's always on the replay if you want to check that out. I answered every single question. It took 2 hours, but I answered every single question y'all asked me, because I promised you I would. She came on for a part of it, and then she scooted to go do her homework, and then I finished. So that was a ton of fun, and there was a lot of great, awesome people there. I loved seeing you all. So the ones who came, thank you so much. And if you come later, I appreciate that too. But yeah, other than that, Vlogmas still ongoing. Saturdays with Steph. I shoot my last video with Steven on Sunday. Those Missouri Star videos have been so much fun. Steven is a hoot, and I am having a lot of fun opening those packages with him. And we've gotten some really great stuff. And I was a little nervous about this box, to be honest with you, because I know in years past they haven't been great, but it's really good this year. So I cannot wait to see what's left. And the next opening, we're going to open everything that's left, just because we're not going to be able to get together because the following week is Christmas already. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much. You made my birthday awesome. And I will see you again soon. Love you all. Bye.